Okay, we made it. We're live. Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. And today we are back having a discussion about process and why process comes before people. The secondary line is why great hires still fail. And really, I always like to blame the system. I think it's not because the technology is bad or because it fails, but usually because nobody thought their way through what is it going to do, when is it going to do it, why is it doing it, and who is it doing it for. So the hire, generally speaking, isn't the problem. The system is. Companies will bring in talent, they'll drop them into unclear roles, broken workflows, zero workflows, poor handoffs, undocumented expectations, and then leadership will wonder why is performance suffering, or what performance is, because you will measure what matters, and if you're not measuring things, then it's hard to say like we are succeeding or failing. So today we're here to talk about why hiring awesome people and giving them weak or non-existent systems is a setup. It's not fair to you or to them. And we're going to talk a bit about how operational clarity is the necessity. Talent can never outperform a broken process. You just can't make that happen, right? Cars need all four wheels. The difference between a hiring issue and a systems issue is probably one of the things we want to look at, and how unclear expectations will create underperformance. While we're doing that, we're going to get some clarity around roles, workflows, and handoffs, and why those things are necessary before scaling headcount, and walk away with a framework that is there to diagnose people problems versus process problems, a clear way to prepare roles before hiring, practical steps to improve team performance without adding pressure, and systems that you can use to help great people do great work. Everything I said applies double for AI, mind you, maybe triple.
Yes.
And so, yeah, let's start getting into this stuff.
There is so much meat on this bone. I'm just taking notes on all of the different things I want to cover, um, because there are so many different ways that we can take this, right? Like, so I had a mentor who was a very successful entrepreneur who always said you have vision, then people, then process. So vision attracts the right people then build the processes then carry out the vision. And it always goes in that order. I don't care if you read Good to Great and you think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's absolutely wrong. It's absolutely wrong. You do not have first what and or first who then what. That's backward, because the who will not be attracted without an attractive vision. Um, However, that's on the front end, right? And so, as we're talking about these processes and giving your teams processes, that's actually vital, because without a process, you're kind of throwing your team to the sharks and saying just figure it out. Now, your top performers are going to figure out a process, and so synthesizing here a little bit of theory of constraints, they talk about always putting your top performers on the bottlenecked resource because they'll figure out how to get more out of that resource than any other employee, and they'll write the processes around that, right? So your top performers will write their own processes, but that's only your top performers. And what is it? I wish Rob were here because he would be able to spin this out like that, but he's looking for someone to sue. The
Yeah.
the only um, we what is it? We don't rise to the level of our training. We rise to the level of our incompetence, or something to that effect. And
Yeah.
so having those processes sort of helps that. And then there's this idea of AI led processes. And AI led processes are where this all breaks down, because AI cannot improve itself yet. For everything that we're hearing about AI writing its own code and everything else, like, It's not generating insights on, hey, I wish I could do this better. I wish I could do that better. It's not doing self improvement the way that a human can. And yeah, so there's a lot of meat on this bone. I don't know where you want to take it, but that's my initial thoughts on all of this.
Well, let's start with the absolute basics. Companies have a customer journey. I oversimplify it all the time into leads, conversion, sales, onboarding, and fulfillment. And they all deserve an equal share of attention. And what we find is that only two of them have any attention.
Yeah.
Right? Marketing and sales. Conversion is an afterthought. And then companies are like, how come all of our spend isn't turning into anything? And why is growth so hard? And that's just the pre-transaction flow. Then there's the post-transaction flow where companies are actually grown. And that stuff is usually just an afterthought. And again, I'm talking about $1 million companies and $1 billion companies. That is true through all of them. The people who've trained me in this stuff worked with 86 of those companies in 2025, and they said this is a consistent problem in every single one of these organizations. Mm-hmm. They're being paid to go in and solve that stuff. So they're looking at a very granular level, line item by line item.
And that's interesting to me, just really quick as an aside, that's interesting to me because in the world we're talking about AI is going to outmode everybody. It's going to outmode everybody. But here you have these $100 million 9-figure companies that are actually investing in their employees, not getting rid of them yet.
Yes. Yeah. And that is a sign of wisdom in my mind. And so if you are just starting out, if you're a startup, if you're lean, if you're, one of the 75 book titles, if you can start a company for only $10, AI can be a helper, but it will not be the foundation that you scale upon. And, be wise, because anyone who claims that is offering you their course, not necessarily growing that actual business. Not that some people haven't done some amazing stuff with AI, but those are people who have not grown a company. They have created a product.
Yes.
And that's something else to be very attentive to.
Yes. 100%. Because that's where the gurus get you. That's where they get you. And they have no clue what they're doing. I've worked with some of these people as a consultant on the back end, and they are constantly in search of their next product because they know that the product that they're selling has a half-life because it's all based on the trend of the moment.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I was just in a call with a company that's doing some real stuff. They're in different verticals. They are growing inside of them. They are servicing them. And I knew I was meeting with a real CEO because we were listing some of the stuff that we do. And one of her first questions was, okay, and out of those things, which are compliant? Because this is another significant factor, right? We can all create magic with AI today or tomorrow. We can all build the thing that goes from $0 to $10 million overnight. But what it actually ends up being worth, or what you end up with, or what people will buy from you, or any of these things are actually based on these preventing legal issues, having something that has a certain amount of stability, has scalability, is a strong enough foundation that you could grow upon it. Because if you make a thing that's worth $10 million and then sell it to somebody for that 10 million, they are not buying it because they want to spend 10 million. They're hopefully buying it after doing due diligence because they think they can pay 10 and grow it to 100.
Right.
But a lot of this stuff out there is a house of cards that will not scale.
Well, and I think if we apply that to employees and internal process, right? Like every employee that you hire is actually just another customer. It's just on the opposite end of the equation, right? You have
Yes.
a product or a service that you're selling to your customer to help them make their lives easier. On the other
Yeah.
side, you actually have a product that you're selling to your employees, and you're doing it in exchange for their time, their money, their attention, their expertise, blah blah blah. And you're buying that with your money. They're selling that stuff to buy your money, right? And so you have to look at that employee employer relationship not as the way that they teach it in school, which I've gotten on my soapbox on this program about before. It's bass backwards. It's
Mhm.
completely messed up because it completely ignores the negotiating power of the individual in favor of, you give up all your negotiating power for to the employer and you just accept whatever terms they're going to give you, which is completely wrong. um, but it if an employer wants to keep those employees around, they have to have an onboarding process for those employees. They have to have features and benefits very clearly spelled out. Like they need to have a marketing department, almost like an internal marketing department that is doing nothing but marketing to those employee customers, like you have an external marketing department to keep those
Yeah.
customers around. Because if Rob were here, he'd give the number, but it's like 235, right?
Yeah.
235% of what you pay in salary is what it costs to replace that employee.
And that's a critical element. I'm really glad we're circling around this. You said expertise earlier. So you hire somebody in-house to come and do lead generation. So they're an expert at lead generation of what? For your product or your service. Therefore, they have to invest in it, learn about it, care about it, decide on what the benefits are for the customer, and really get essentially emotionally involved for that lead to convert. And then the conversion role, same thing has to happen for that person. And then the sales role, same thing has to happen for that person. Onboarding, your account managers, your customer success managers, fulfillment, the people who are building the thing, which is where a lot of businesses start. They have a very small visionary team. They have a couple of people who help build with it. And then they struggle for an extended period of time of trying to figure out how to explain to the rest of the world why it's valuable, how it's important, what's the problem it solves. And all of that stuff needs to be able to come out of the mouths of your people.
Yes.
This is really what onboarding is, in my opinion, is converting them over to the actual value of what you do, not the values that are printed on the wall that you're supposed to be able to memorize and then, get on with your life. But what's the actual value of what you're doing? The value of your role, the value that you're providing to the customer on that customer journey. That needs to translate.
Well, and this is why talent can't outperform a broken process, right? Because it's like, with regards to what you're saying, that broken process will get in the way of that talent every single
Yeah.
time. And
Yeah.
that's the dangerous thing. And I think that oftentimes we're not giving those employees the support or the tools that they need. It's like, imagine that you have a very specific problem as a manager that you just can't seem to solve. I don't know what it is. Maybe we aren't generating enough leads in marketing. We're not getting enough marketing qualified leads. Okay. So how much would you be willing to pay to get those marketing qualified leads unstuck? A lot of businesses out there, they'll go and they'll pay someone, a consultant, six figures to come and get
Yeah.
that unstuck. But they won't talk to the person who's on their team who's spent the last 5 years learning the ins and outs of that organization and ask them, like, honestly, like, magic wand, what do we need to do to get this unstuck? Because the
Right.
likelihood is that the consultant's going to come in and ask that person, hey, what do you need to do to get this unstuck? And then they'll just
Yeah.
put some bells and whistles and a little secret sauce. I know, because I've done this before. Like, that's what we do as consultants, right?
Right.
Sometimes. But that's the thing is it's like part of these broken processes aren't just A leads to B, B leads to C, C leads to D. It's sort of this squishy, qualitative sort of is management actually listening to the expert consultant that they're paying 50 grand a year, 80 grand a year, 120 grand a year to employ to focus exclusively on solving that problem. And I think that it's because we still have this sort of industrial mindset when it comes to employees where it's like, I've hired you to pull this lever. You're
Right.
pulling the marketing lever. And if you're not pulling the marketing lever, you're not doing your job. Instead of thinking, I hired you to solve the problem of marketing. This is the specific problem I want you to solve, and go and solve it. I don't care what you need to do to solve it. Those are two very different propositions. And I want you to genuinely ask yourself, if I looked at this as I'm hiring this person to solve a problem, what would change in your organization culturally as well as motivationally for your employees and progressively, like how much progress you're making at what rate. um, I'm willing to bet it would accelerate dramatically, and that's part of that broken process is that mindset behind the process or how you look at the problem.
Thank you for bringing that up. I love that you are talking about a lever because I think there's no truer way of explaining it. Right now, the measurement is you give them the lever, and then the way to perform is to pull it faster, period.
Yeah.
It isn't, hey, let's build a longer lever. Let's put the lever in a better spot. Like there's so many other ways that leverage could be used
Mm-hmm.
where slowing down and doing a little bit of design work would produce a significantly better result, as you pointed out. And instead of just, yeah, faster, right? Like it's back to
Yeah.
the movies where everybody's rowing in the galley of the boat, and the only thing you can do is beat the drum faster. Like that's
Yeah.
it. It's just assembly line thinking, and then there's so much more that we can do.
Oh, absolutely. And it's interesting because it goes all the way back to the hiring process.
Yes.
Because the hiring process, HR is trained, you need to look for this many years of experience. They don't think about why. And
Yeah.
so the AI that has been encoded to help HR flag through these resumes looks at those at experience as well, instead of thinking, what is the problem I'm trying to solve? So I'll give you an example. Um, in previous sales work, I was the top performer on my team within 6 months. I was the fastest first close in the company's history. It was high ticket, like six-figure deals, and I was regularly closing them, up to $500,000 deals. Um, and I had a 25% close rate, right? Which
Right.
in this specific industry, unheard of. And someone asked me to interview for a position, so I said, okay, what the heck? So I interviewed for this position, and they said, how many years of experience do you have? And I said, oh, I've been in this particular role about a year. And they say, nuts. Well, we'll see if we can't get you to the next level, but we're really looking for this level of expertise and experience. And I asked the interviewer, I said, why? And they said, oh, well, that's just what the role requires. And I said to this interviewer, well, it seems to me that I can have 1 year of experience that demonstrates that I'm able to solve the problem you're hiring me to solve, or you can hire someone who's got 4 years of 1 year of experience. They've just lived 1 year of experience 4 times. Which do you actually want? Do you want someone who can solve the problem, or do you want to check the box? And the checking the box is the problem. That's
Yes.
the point that we're trying to make, is that when the process becomes simply checking the box, it gets in the way of actually delivering the results that you want. And in that case, talent can't outperform that broken process.
So to start like recapping the preamble from today, what you've just distinguished, I think, is the critical difference between a hiring issue and a systems issue.
Mm-hmm.
Because it doesn't matter how great the hire is if you just stick them in and say check boxes.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very well put. Role clarity, workflows, and handoffs.
Well, I think we kind
Wow.
of touched on that because of
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing more that needs to be said about it because half the businesses I get called into don't have any of those three.
Yeah.
And so the fact that they even exist as ideas on the wall that people are aiming towards puts you in the top 50% already. And we discussed this earlier between companies. Like I've got data from 10 million to a billion, and they're all suffering from a lack of role clarity, workflows, and handoffs.
And again, the lack of role clarity comes because they don't actually understand the problem that they're hiring that employee to solve. And
Yes.
so the employee can't come in and solve that problem. They're fundamentally hiring an employee to just be a lever puller, and
Yep.
that's worthless. If I need a lever puller, Jacob, you could set up 60 AI agents for me that would be excellent lever pullers. I guarantee it. I know the work you do.
Yep.
You do fine work. You could do that for me. And there's no
Yep.
point in bringing a human in. I need a human for critical thinking.
Yes.
And so the role that we hire for now, those job descriptions, they have to change from this is the job description, this is the years of experience you have to have, because AI throws all of that out of the window anyway, right? In
Absolutely.
my pocket, I can get any level of experience I want. I can create a world class copywriter using AI and then just add the human touch, right? But what I can't get is the critical thinking of knowing when do I use this line of copy versus that line of copy. Who am I actually targeting? Who am I not targeting? That's what those job descriptions need to pivot toward.
Very well said. And that is probably the biggest issue around the whole AI thing is how easy it is to scale garbage.
Yeah.
Right? It is not a process-based tool. It, like you said, doesn't think its way through the iterations of how could this be improved. And the people who do that are the ones who are re-engineering the prompt because they have the critical thinking to look at the output falling short and then re-engineering it, trying to reach that goal.
Right.
So there's a clear example right there of that human in the loop and how necessary it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And frankly, because of how we have engineered AI, I don't know that we will ever reach a point where human in the loop is not to a certain extent required. I know that there are
Yeah.
some AI thought leaders who are saying we could reach the time of billionaire solopreneurs. I don't know that I agree with that. I think that you're still going to need a team behind you, but the sentiment is kind of still there. You're always going to need a human in the loop, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, very well said. What else do we want people to leave with today, to think about or to implement?
I think that for me, the recommendation that I would have is, and this is homework, so don't hate me for this, but I want you to sit down with every single one of your employees for just 15 minutes and just ask them, what is the problem? Like if we boiled your role down and said, you solve this one problem for the company, what is that?
Mhm.
And then change all, like after you've met with them, like change their incentive structure to be around solving that one problem. I think
Beautiful.
it's massive returns.
Beautiful. I completely agree. In addition to that, or piggybacking on top of it, really, again, I'm probably misquoting Rob here, but you will always fall short to the level of your lack of planning, lack of infrastructure, or in my opinion, lack of an SOP. Even knowing what the role is, that's where you're going to fail. And FYI, that's all a design problem. It doesn't matter how brilliant, talented, how many years of experience that new hire has.
Right.
They will default to that lack of support, structure, and clarity.
Right. That's how it always goes. That's how it always
Yeah.
goes.
Yeah. And it does increase their likelihood of turnover. Because people who really know what they're doing get frustrated by their inability to do it well.
Oh, and that's why they leave. Right? And I will be honest. This is me thinking out loud, but it feels right, so just bear with me, King. I think that the future will belong to the companies who do the best job of retaining their employees. I think that employee retention will become like one of the main indicators of business success in the next 20 years.
Yeah, I completely agree. Cool. Well, on that note, everybody, thank you for your time. Zach, thank you for being here as well. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time.
Are we still on? Oh, we're still on.
Perfect.
Baby.
Yeah, you got it.
It still says live.
That's really delayed. I hit